Welcome to the first ever Who Are These Guys update from the garage. It's going to be a little video resource that goes back and looks at the last week in review and pulls out some snippets that can be useful for you as a young leader in ministry. So the first thing is we start in a serious tone. There's a news article I came across that said that recently the suicide rates for teenagers and young adults between the ages of 10 and 24 has just taken a sharp 8% increase. Now, Dr. Elena Arias, who's the director of the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, had this to say. Either way, it's a harsh reminder that suicide and suicide attempts are affecting too many youth and young adults. We need to make sure suicide prevention efforts are continuous and reaching children and young adults. Now, suicide sometimes hits you quick in a youth ministry position in a high school. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 in a year, and sometimes you don't have any for a long stretch, but it's always a relevant topic when you're teaching teenagers. And so just some quick suggestions on ways to make sure that you can prevent suicide as much as possible is to, one, make a directory of resources that you make available for your church if anyone calls your main church line, or that you hand out to students and to parents, to teach a series on, like a Life Hurts, God Heals kind of thing, which you can look up at lifehurtsgodheals.com, which deals with depression and cutting and some of the more hurts, habits, and hang-ups that teenagers might be dealing with. And suicide would definitely be one of those issues. And the last one would be to do a parents' informational seminar, which would tell them to look for the signs of things that teenagers are dealing with. And you might have to do some research or even contact a local professional and have them come in and do a presentation for your parents so that they have the resources to prevent that sort of thing from happening to their own teenager or in the communities that they're in. Now, the second thing we want to do is pull a quick blog post from a youth pastor and see how it relates to the rest of our lives. And so this week, we're going to pull one from Chris Walker, who's at technerdical.churchpunk.com. And now Chris has recently gone through a transition. And here's a little snippet from his blog about where he's moving on right now in his life. So for now, the big reason I've been so quiet. We have decided that now is the time for us to take a break from youth ministry. We have been serving in this role now for 4 years, and in the process have been married, had 2 children, bought a house, and all kinds of other things that go along with life changes. It has become increasingly difficult to live up to our own expectations for the youth ministry and still take care of business at home. Everything just came to a head recently, and although we are sad to be stepping down, this is what is best for our family. That's a brave move, and I've had to step down from a youth ministry position before. And if you're in youth ministry for any length of time, I've only met a few people who've stayed in the same place for 15 or 20 years. Typically, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision about staying at a church or not. And even more to the point is you need to make sure that your family life is always healthy. And I know in Chris's situation, they have a lot of things going on, and I think this was a wise decision on his part. But it's just a good reminder to make sure we always keep family first and don't let our work overwhelm us. We've seen too many preachers' kids ourselves to know that it can be destructive when the preacher's married to the church instead of loving on his family. And finally, I want to do a little story and a devotional thought for us here in our update from the garage. There was one Sunday morning when I was a youth pastor when we were having issues with the sound equipment. And so I went back there real quick to try and make sure everything was plugged in right so we could play a video. And when I stood up, a chocolate gem donut came whizzing and just nailed me in the face at full velocity. I think it even stuck to my face for a second. Now, of course, all the kids in my youth ministry started laughing and howling and everything else. And I had been rushing so much that morning. I had been so concerned about the technical stuff and making everything. I just want everything to be perfect. You work so hard and you want everything just to be right. And then that happened, and it just really caught me off guard. And I got super, super upset. And I had to actually just sit down for like 10 minutes and just take a break. And everyone was kind of wondering what was going on. I just turned on a song, and I had to sit down and gather myself. And a verse I needed that day would have been from Proverbs 19. And this is what it says. We live in such a way that no one will stumble because of us, and no one will find fault with our ministry. In everything we do, we show that we are true ministers of God. We patiently endure troubles and hardships and calamities of every kind. And we prove ourselves by our purity, our understanding, our patience, our kindness, by the Holy Spirit within us, and by our sincere love. And as much as I love being around teenagers, sometimes their immaturity or sometimes their mistakes, sometimes I do boneheaded things, and I know that I need God's grace to have the patience and kindness when I see them. And I also need to remember that God has called me to teach them, but I'm not in charge of the decisions that they do make. And so when they make mistakes or they do some foolish thing like whipping donuts around during church or drinking on the weekends, that it's not my fault. They're making their own decisions and they're on their own journey, and I need to stay faithful to letting the Holy Spirit dwell inside me and show them the love and kindness and gentleness that God expects me to do, while at the same time being the pastor and being a place where they can come and be safe to fail and have interaction. So this is this week's Who Are These Guys update from the garage. I hope you enjoyed it. Any blog posts you want to suggest, any news articles, or any devotional stories you have, we'd love to hear them. We'll give you credit. Or if you even want to do your own video and send it our way, we'd love to add it into the Who Are These Guys weekly update from the garage.